Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Today I'm going to use one of my friend John's stones that he gave me. It's a pretty seam agate. It's red seam agate from Indonesia, and it's got a really kind of cool shape. It's like sort of almost like a flame. And I thought I'd do something today where I did a partial prong setting where I have kind of a ridge of metal that part of the edge of the stone parks under, and then we'll use prongs to hold it in place on the other end. So we'll try and come up with a pretty design. I think I have some ideas, and I'll show you in a minute. But before we do that, let me thank some people. My patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters. I truly lucky to have them, and I appreciate their financial support, but I really appreciate the cool community that they've made over there. It's a really nice place with a lot of nice people who are all pretty talented, really. So I enjoy interacting with them. My other group of people that I owe thanks to are my YouTube subscribers, and we just passed 22,700. We're getting close to 23. Some people say some really nice things, and I do appreciate that. It's truly nice to know that I'm helping some people, so thanks for letting me know that. I also appreciate the financial contributions, like the Buy Me a Coffees and the Super Thanks, and the people who buy my ebooks and the merch. That makes it possible for me to make this a paying gig, so thank you for that. I appreciate it. Alright, well, let's get started on this cool pendant I'm going to make. So this is one of my design idea sketchbooks that you can get on my merch store. There's a number of different designs, and this particular one has a gauge to inches to millimeters conversion chart, which I use all the time. There's a bunch of different other ones too. There's one that is fractions of an inch to decimals to millimeters as well, and that's another one that I use a lot. So the real feature though is this nice kind of dot matrix in the background that I find useful. It helps me to keep things sort of symmetrical, which, you know, sometimes things don't always come out that way when I draw them. Alright, so let me show you the stone here. This is the stone. It's an Indonesian red seam agate. And so I think it's got some cool colors. It's got greens over here and then some kind of pinks and oranges over here, and so it looks like flames sort of. And the overall cut of the stone kind of looks like a flame. So I drew up a couple ideas. I was going to do it like this, and I thought that just looks like a chrysalis almost, but not really the look I was going for. And then I flipped it up the other way, and I think it looks more kind of flowy and sinuous. So I'm going to go with that route. And I think I'm going to use some 18 gauge sheet for the back, which is 1 millimeter. This will probably be 16 gauge round if I can find a little piece of that. Probably the same way with these two prongs down here. And I'm going to use, I think, 22 gauge sheet here. And I'll probably find a way to, first of all, cut a notch in it here maybe, and bend it into the shape it needs to be, and then maybe bend the ends over like this and then solder that so it's a complete seam like that. That's my idea anyway. We'll see how it works out. And that'll create kind of a recessed area in here to hold this side of the stone, and then hopefully these other two prongs, if we add those on, we'll be able to set those over and just really keep this in there nice and tight, but still show so much of the stone. You know, we like to have a lot of the stone showing if we can. And then I'll do a little sawing on the side here. This will be nice because I won't have to saw straight, because that's not my strongest suit. All right, so I think first off, I pre-made the bail because I wanted to focus on this, and I've done this bail so many times on the channel that if you want to see how to do that basic idea, it's kind of a standard bail that I use for a lot of stuff. There's a link to a video up there. It's a nice one. If you make a whole bunch of those, then you'll always have them handy, and you can just slap them onto a piece if you want to, which I should do, but I never have time to sit down and make 10 or 20 of them. But I did make this one today, so that one's ready to go, so I'm not going to show you that. But I think first I'm going to find some scratch paper and trace this here, and then I'm going to use that to cut out a piece of 18 gauge sheet. So mostly I can use shears to do it too, because it's got outside curves. I may just cut it straight and then file it or Dremel it to get that curve. We'll see. Okay. I can see through that well enough. Yeah, that looks alright. I was trying to figure out how to fit it on this little piece, but I don't think I can do it. It's just slightly too small. Oh well, what are you going to do? So I think maybe initially let's just cut a rectangle off. I think I'm just going to glue that down a little bit. So I'm going to cut the outer angles just with my shears, and then we'll see. Outer curves, I should say. I get asked about these shears a lot. They're just Fisker's craft shears, really. And cutting 18 gauge with them is not really what they're designed to do, so they will eventually wear out from doing this kind of stuff. But I find them a little more manageable than tin snips. And sometimes it's really unnecessary to have to saw things, which for me takes a little longer because I'm not as good at it. Alright, let's just go saw that out. Okay, we'll clean that up with the file a little bit. I'm going to clean off the excess super glue and stuff. I'll be right back. I just got rid of some of the deep scratches too with my rotary tool with a polishing wheel, and then rinsed it off. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to use a little bit of tape to temporarily hold it down where I want it on this backing. Just want to make sure I get the marks made in the correct spot for these components that are going to hold the stone in place. See if we can't keep it from moving too much while I mark them. About like that. I like that. Let me find a T-pin now. I think maybe from about there. I don't want to go down too far. Not like that, maybe. And then I can just kind of arbitrarily decide how far down I want these, but so what I need to do is I need to cut a piece of 22 gauge sheet, and I need to figure out how tall it needs to be just barely be above there. So let's measure this, at least kind of get an estimate anyway. I'm thinking at the highest point it's about 3 millimeters till we get to the top edge of the side. What did I say, 3? 3 millimeters, yeah, about. So if we take 3 millimeters and add just maybe another millimeter, or 4, let's do 5 just to be safe. We can always file it down a little bit. So let's find some 22. Now, how long of a piece do we need here? I forgot to look to see if I have any 16 gauge round. Good job, Chad. So let's, what about like that? You can use that to measure. Let me say 5 millimeters. I think let's do like 1 millimeter off this edge, and I'll scribe a line that's about 1 millimeter. And I think I might use my saw to score it just a little bit. I think that might give us a little bit nicer, angle over. And then we can start filing down the bottom until we get it just the right height. And then we can worry about bending it right here for this spot. So it'll be an interesting shape to try and put it together. Okay, let's see if we can score a little line in there. I don't probably need to score it a huge amount. Just enough so where it'll bend right on that line, I think. Alright. I think let's try and do it like this. So I'm thinking always thinking. Let's see if I can do this. I'm going to do it this way because I'm left or right-handed. So it really needs to kind of bend right about here. So I may cut a little V right out of that spot there, a small one, and we'll start bending it and see how it turns out. This really needs to curve gently, kind of, and this top part's not going to want to do that much, so we'll see if we can kind of, you know, manipulate it into that form. Stone, anyway. I should put this around the stone. So I can see when I look at it up against a stone like this, where I might need to push it down further. So I think it needs to be pulled down in the middle a little bit more. I think we're pretty close on the curve on the stone. Oops. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to clean that up with the file and solder the top of that. Actually, I'm going to solder the top of it and then clean it off with the file. I guess you could do it either way. I do something called pick soldering a lot, where I pick up a piece of solder on the end of my pick, heat the piece up to the soldering temperature and touch it where it's supposed to go. It allows me to place it pretty precisely. I find it to be a super useful technique, so if you're interested in learning how to do that, I have a video right there I'll put a link to. It's one of those skills that took me from a rank amateur to a less rank amateur. I'm just going to use a pretty good sized piece here. Maybe there could be ranks of silversmithing. could go up in rank when you master a new skill. Or you could do belts like martial arts. I'm a black belt silversmith. Let's see if we were to have names for levels of what silversmith you are. What would be the first level? I guess it would be silversmithing curious, followed by noob, and that's an N00B. After that, wet behind the ears. That would be the next rank. My rank would be pretentious upstart. Once I get this kind of shape to my to where I feel good about it, which is I'm close, I'm going to spend some time just well, you know what I could do? Put this on here and then just scribe a line where it meets. Oh, I just got demoted back to wet behind the ears. Darn it. I need it to stay in place though. Like that. I think that's probably okay. So I'm going to spend some time filing this down, and then we're going to solder it down to that sheet, right where we scratched that line where we went. I'm soldering it down kind of like that. And we can put the stone on here and kind of make sure we have things positioned exactly how we want them. And once we have that on, I think we can mark where we need to put our little prongs. And I might try and actually drill some holes in this one and then slide some wires in, and we'll solder them in that way. If I can find a drill bit that's just about the same size as a 16 gauge wire, which is 1.3 millimeters. So let me file this down and then I'll come back and we'll put it together. I have this placed, hopefully, where it's supposed to go. I'm going to flux this while it's not hot so I don't boil it away. Because a lot of times when you heat flux, it goes through that stage where it's boiling, and it jiggles the stuff around that you have sitting on the spot you want it to be, and it ends up not on the spot you want it to be. I'm going to try and heat this a little slowly so it doesn't go through that so much. More evaporate it than boil it away. Or at least boil it. Oops, I think it moved on me. No, maybe it didn't. Okay. So I'm going to try and place a little solder on the inside here. That way any kind of excess doesn't show on the outside where it'll save us some polishing stuff away. Most of the mass in this piece is in the base because it's 18 gauge, which is 1 millimeter. And that's a pretty thick sheet. And this thing has very little mass comparatively, so the one on top will reach temperature very quickly. The one on the bottom will take some work. So I'm going to actively avoid that top piece while I get that sheet hot. As much as I can before I start really attempting to bring that piece on top up to the 1450 degrees it needs to be for the solder to adhere to it. So I'm really, but the amount of mass is significantly different in this one. So that's why a lot of times people melt their bezels when they're soldering it down to the base at first, because it's hard to get the piece on the bottom up to temperature. You can see the solder joint melting on the top of that piece there. There we go, we're getting close now. Make sure we get a good seam over there. I want to get demoted again. Oh, that's pretty good. It fits in there nicely. Doesn't stick up too high or anything. Give myself an A- on that one. Now we need to figure out where exactly to put the holes for these. Prongs is the term I'm looking for. Out there. I didn't want to get Sharpie on the stone because agates are a little bit porous. I marked it next to where the stone was so I wouldn't get it on the stone, and I scribed a line on the edge of the stone so I knew how far in to go. And I'm going to try and find a bit now that matches 16 gauge wire. I also need to find some 16 gauge wire. Here's some actually, I think. Yeah. Okay, so let me do some drill bit comparison and we'll drill a couple of holes there. Okay, so one trick that someone told me recently, I don't remember who, is instead of using a center punch when you're trying to mark where you're going to drill your hole and things, if you use a little tiny ball burr, you don't ding the metal at all. It doesn't deform it in any way. So I think that's a good idea. So I'm going to try and do a little dimple there. Okay, that way I have a little starting place. Later in a minute I'm going to be using this to ream the hole just slightly. I couldn't find a bit that was exact match because my area here is kind of a mess, and I probably took it out and didn't put it back where it's supposed to go. Okay, should. Doesn't quite fit there. It almost fits. So I'm just going to use this diamond burr. Let's give it just a slight. It looks like I poked a ghost's eye out. Nice, Chad. Die, Casper, die. See, we got a smiling face. That's kind of creepy now that I look at it. Okay, let's go back and solder this thing together. Okay, so I bent them over a little bit and got them as tightly against there as I could. And I'm probably just going to pick a little solder into there, and we'll see how that goes. Same deal with the mass disparity. Prong's not very much. This big piece of sheet, quite a bit. One thing I'm going to do to make sure we get a really good seam on there, because I had some problems one time with this, so I'm going to be a little careful. I thought something was soldered in and it wasn't. Story of my life. Let's do that over the edge. And we'll pick it from the back side as well, just to be safe. I think those should be in there pretty good. We will be smoothing out the inside to be a little bit flatter, and then we'll see how things fit. But first we need to put the bail on, and then we'll let it pickle after that. So here's that bail I made in advance. So we'll be putting that on there. I think I kind of wanted to start a piece of 16 on the back, have it loop around and end up on the front and kind of taper down. So let's see if I can, let's file one end of this a little bit so it kind of tapers. Yep, we got a solder on that side. So let's cool it off and see how things look. Alright, I'm just going to pick a little solder in there. Oh, I need to cut some little cuts in there too. Somewhere in the meantime, I'll grind these off. Probably do that after it pickles, though. I'm going to do this with some Sharpie so I can scratch some little squiggles through it. Probably should have dried this off better. I wanted the stone in place so I can kind of see along there where the red things are. Maybe we can concentrate them from those. Alright, let's just go cut those out. We'll throw it in the pickle, see how it turns out. It's almost time to make a new bench pin, I think. I think I like sawing where I don't have to worry about it being straight. All right, so hopefully you can see that. All right, so I'm going to throw this in the pickle and we'll see how things turn out. A couple of things I did off camera after I polished it was I cleaned it up, and then I stuck the stone in here and I thinned out the inside of the prong and flattened it until the stone slid right in there, because I deliberately drilled these right through the center of the line that I scratched into the sheet here, so that it would be partway into the stone, so it would be a nice snug fit. I did slip a little bit with my Dremel, and I got a little groove in there, but it's mostly covered up, so I can probably make it look okay. But I did taper the prongs on top too after I cut them to about where I thought they should be, which is just about there. And then I'm just going to use this, push them down kind of carefully so I don't crack the stone or anything. That would be no fun. Okay. And then the last thing that I'll probably do is take a blue fine silicone wheel on my rotary tool and just smooth those out, and that's where I'll try and work out the little bit of the groove that I cut in there. And then I should be able to just use a polishing cloth to buff it up the rest of the way. But that's kind of what I was shooting for. So I think it'll be an interesting piece. Someone will love that. So, all right, so thanks, John, for the pretty stone. And tell me what you think, you guys, if you like it, if you don't like it, what you would have done differently. I think it turned out okay, so let me know. Okay, well, that was the partial prong pendant. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you go. That really helps to get my channel promoted. And I'd love it if you would take a moment and go over to my main channel page. I have well over 500 videos now, and so there's a ton of content, and there's almost certainly something useful or interesting for you over there. So make sure to check some of those videos out, and then make sure to subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you as a follower. I put out 3 videos per week, so there's quite a bit of content constantly coming out. So I think it'll be worth your while to do that. All right, well, don't forget to hit the video description down below. There's some important links there. There's a link to John's Etsy store, so if you want to get yourself some pretty stones that he makes, like I have. There's a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks or some other merch. There's a link to my Patreon, should you care to find out more about that community. It's a nice place with a lot of knowledge to tap into. And there's also a link to my ebooks if you want to get yourself a guide to last year's videos, which includes extra information about each, as well as pictures, materials lists, difficulty rating, lots of notes about each one. So check it out. It's a great way to have a whole bunch of projects at your fingertips and a super nice way to help support my channel. So, all right, well, thanks for watching today. Take care. Happy silversmithing.